Hi guys, I'm Linda.
I'm Vicki.
I'm Margie.
I'm Keith.
And we are
Partners in
Crime. So today, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about
treasure.
Hidden treasure.
Hidden buried treasure.
What is
You
the
too.
name of the documentary that we watched?
Murder Among the Mormons.
Yes,
Right.
on Netflix.
Right.
So we took a look at that. I have to say, from looking at the title and the beginning of the show, I thought it was going to be about the Mormons and their beliefs, and it started out that way, but it kind of switched gears, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right on.
so why
I
don't you
thought it
guys
was going
fill
to be
us
like
in?
Mormon cover-up stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
the
in the
Mormon.
beginning.
It was.
So what
Well,
happened in the
There
beginning?
was a bit of that, but
Yeah.
it ends up becoming, I would just say not damning to the Mormons. It
Right.
was, and actually the guy that actually did this thing was a Mormon himself,
Okay, so this starts out with
Jared
what?
Hess. What's it start out with?
Yep, let's start from the beginning. So they're talking about the Salamander letter. Apparently there was this letter that someone found.
Right.
What's his name?
Mark Hoffman.
Mark Hoffman found the Salamander letter, and in the letter they believe it was in Joseph Smith's handwriting.
No, it wasn't
His
Joseph
mother's.
Smith.
It was his mother's.
His
No,
mother.
it wasn't his mother. It was another guy that was a close associate.
Of Joseph Smith.
Yes, I forget his name, but he's in the founding. He's one of the first, almost like apostle type person
okay.
too. Joseph.
Apostle, right?
He was like a follower, a partner,
So this
all that.
letter states that Joseph Smith actually didn't find the golden tablets by this Moroni or Moroni.
The ancient Moroni.
He didn't find the tablets by Moroni. He actually was told where the tablets were by this white salamander in
Right.
this letter.
Right.
Right. But I have to tell you, the beginning was a little bit about the background of Mark Hoffman.
Mark Hoffman. Right. He was a.
Grew up in a Mormon household.
He was Mormon, raised Mormon, but he's also became a collector of historical documents, coins, and then he became this world-renowned sort of guy that found the these very old, authentic
Documents.
documents, and then ended up selling them. And a lot of it was he sold a lot of things to the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church is really big on historical documents, and they buy
Right.
this stuff up.
So what were
And
the
they have
documents?
their own giant library.
Many documents. I believe that when when you say they weren't involved in a cover-up, I think they implied that they buy these documents so that the information in the documents is not revealed.
That's what I
That
took
wasn't
from that as
directly
well.
said, but it's definitely implied.
Yes,
and then knowing
yeah.
the history of not only the Mormon Church, but all other churches,
Yeah.
when there's things like that, they want to control the information.
Right.
They don't want anything that's going to, hurt their origin story, their
The faith.
whatever their
Yeah.
the stories that are the bedrock of the religion.
Right,
They don't want them to
exactly.
be tainted. And this, my first impression was a white salamander. Okay, I mean, that's why it was so good and it was so believable, because it's plausible, because it's kind of that the way that letter was written. You had it actually works. Even just say it was true, it would actually work with the Mormon storyline, so to speak,
About
and
the
any
old
religious
tablets.
storyline.
Yeah.
There's miracles and people living to 900 years old and all kinds of things happening in religious origin stories that are not scientifically provable for sure, not
Right.
repeatable.
Right.
And so, if it's a white salamander, I think Moroni was still involved, but the white salamander somehow pointed it to.
Where the golden
And then,
tablets
and
were.
that becomes like,
Or
oh,
plates.
salamander's like a talking snake. It's like, well, that's witchcraft or something. So now,
Right.
but I don't know how real that was a threat. But certainly the Mormon Church wanted that document. That was the thing I got from it too. They
Right.
wanted it.
Because it was a change in their original story of how he found the golden, what are they,
The
plates?
tablets, yeah, the
Golden
plates.
plates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plates.
They call them plates.
So they didn't want that known. They wanted that original story.
Right.
To stay.
Because
Yeah.
you might have the believers questioning, well, this is what we thought for all these
Right.
years. What?
Yeah, and apparently it did. At that time period, when the thing was believed, there
This was in the late
people
70s,
were
early
having
80s, right?
mid 80s.
Okay.
People were having conflicts with their faith and whatnot because of that.
Okay.
That's my understanding,
So
and
then,
that it was believed.
what happened then after, because of these letters, there were bombings in Salt Lake City?
Correct. He was a distributor. He was selling the documents, and he was selling them to other collectors. They realized that it was collectors that were being targeted. After the first bomb, it was Richardson, I believe his name was. He was a big collector of these documents, paid a
Or
lot
was
of
it
money.
Sylvester?
Christman.
Christman?
His name was Christman's son or something.
Okay.
He was the guy that was bombed and
Yes,
killed.
he was the first.
But he was buying these things and then giving them to the church.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But he was buying
And he
them
bought the
from,
salamander letter.
from Mark Hoffman.
Yes.
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 He bought it and he donated it to the church.
Right. Right. Then the second bombing occurred. He was targeting
That was
another.
that guy's
or-
boss.
Sheets, I think, wasn't it?
And the last name was Sheets. It was the wife that ended up getting the
Right.
bomb.
Unfortunately, in error.
In the documentary, though, I mean, they actually have, they set up, they show you the bomb. They make it like a little movie, right? They make it like a little movie. They show the guy screwing the pipes together, making the bomb, right? And delivering the brown paper bag. So they weave in historical. They have like 1980s church videos that were actually given to
The
the documentary guys by the
Okay.
church. They
And-
weave it in there.
Well, they also.
Didn't they leave you to believe that it was the Mormon Church that started these bombings? Was
I
that
think it was
what?
a little bit hung out there. I mean, I was
Okay,
definitely
I thought
thinking
that they were kind of,
I was
Yeah,
thinking
I
they're
definitely
trying
thought that
to
too,
trying
yeah.
to silence somebody
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
because then he got bombed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Mark Hoffman was in his car and the car blew up with him in it. He didn't die,
Yes.
but they did police investigation. But they interviewed police. The police were the ones who were connecting him to the documents and the collectors.
Right. But
They're
what
the
they,
Well, there was the thing that kind of blew it wide open was that, and it was spoiler alert. So anyway,
Yeah,
but
big
that
spoiler alert.
that these guys, he had a Hockenbecker or some last name where he actually went, examined the documents, found the cracked ink, and then realized all these Mark Hoffman documents all have this particular cracked ink. None of the original ones do. That was the thing that broke it wide open, that they were indeed fraudulent.
so basically Mark Hoffman was actually the one that made these documents.
Yeah,
He
at
was-
first he's like the middleman salesman.
Making lots of money because they thought these were original documents.
He was finding them, but he really was forging these documents.
Yes.
Now, some of the documents he had were not forged. Some of them were authentic. And
He actually said later on, damn near everything he was doing was forged stuff.
Yeah.
At first, he would just do a little bit of like real stuff, and he just weaved it in there to cover
right,
himself. But
right.
all of his blockbuster things were.
And they were
forged.
asking, how did this man find all these documents when no one else could have?
Right, he just finds them
Why
in
is
a
this
library
man
in New
someone,
York.
or in London?
Which-
He was in London.
That's the thing I wanted to say. This Newman Osfully guy that was on YouTube. That is really the thing is the Hoffman story is very similar. You wouldn't make the connection unless you knew about Mormons and the history of the Mormons and Joseph Smith. You know, that thing just. You know, he's like this treasure hunter. He's going and finding this, right? He's finding this stuff, even though he's creating it.
Why don't you explain this, Keith?
Yeah. Well,
We have a little prop here. Go
That's
ahead.
the one thing that's good about it in this documentary. You go into the mind of this guy. He actually, and it turns out he ends up being a guy guilty for the bombings and for the fraudulent, and then in order to get life in prison, he volunteers to tell him everything that he did.
Okay.
And that's when you actually start hearing his voice, and he's going step by step on how and why he did all this stuff. And he tells a story when he was a kid, and I can relate to this, and I think most people will relate to this if you're honest with yourself, but that they were out treasure hunting, and there were probably a bunch of Mormon kids, and the whole Mormon religion is based on finding this treasure. Joseph Smith finds the gold plates. He finds them under a rock buried, right? And it's tells the whole story of Jesus visiting America and all that stuff. But anyway, he's out there in the woods digging up treasure, and he finds a jar of coins. Turns out that he reveals that he actually went out there and buried the jar
The day before, yeah.
But then he goes out. And then he's like this hero in front of these kids, and that's when he starts realizing that the quote about the truth. It's like the truth isn't something that seems to be true and becomes accepted as true. It becomes true.
Right.
So as far as he's concerned, as far as those kids are concerned, he found treasure.
Yeah.
Right, and it's true. And then how easy is it to make it true like that, you know?
Right.
To make a story true.
He was a genius.
Yeah.
His ability to create these documents and the techniques that he used was just brilliant. And
when he could copy the actual penmanship.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Other people's handwriting.
Yeah.
To a T.
Right.
And he took, in one part, they showed him explaining how he would make the documents, and when the ink would sink into the paper after so many, after all that time, so he took a vacuum
And
to
sucked
pull
the
the
ink
ink down into the paper.
that was just one
And
of
then
his
he ended up
techniques.
fooling the FBI.
He did.
All these
Yes.
experts, right?
Yeah.
Except that one guy that him and his partner they just went at it like, all right, we got to just find out how this is fake.
Yeah.
They just looked, they didn't, they were looking at it from a different lens.
Yeah,
right?
what was that machine that they put it in the? This is a big machine in.
Yeah, they shoot it with like electrons and stuff.
yeah.
That was beyond me. I have no idea what that was.
I forget what it was
some kind
called.
of electron, photon.
Electromagnetic something or other that the
And it
government
passed.
has. It did, yeah.
The other thing was the guy was able to pass a lie detector test and not only like pass it, but totally flying colors.
He aced it.
He got the best,
aced it. Yeah.
highest result possible, right?
Yeah.
And he was lying the whole time.
Yeah, but he had trained himself
Right.
to do that, which is
Right.
amazing too.
Right.
Well, that's what I, what the story I wanted to tell. I'm going to go back because I want to talk about this because I know when I was telling Margie about this when I was younger. I used to work on a farm, and apple and peach farm, and we worked with migrant workers and stuff. And me and my cousins, we were like 13, 14 years old. And I remember there was this really good-looking migrant worker, Latino girl, and I created this whole story in my mind that I hooked up with her, had a romantic fling with her, and then I told my cousins that I did because I was just like, I became infatuated with her, and I was like, and then I told them, and it was weird because it's not weird, but it's just a thing that the mind can do. Like I just convinced myself it was true, and I was so. They were like, no way, and I was like, yeah, you know, I convinced myself it was true. And I'm just wondering,
you were having
like
fantasies.
Well,
Did you interact with her?
Not really. I mean, I didn't really interact with her. I just admired her.
Did they believe you?
I'd have to ask them today, but I never backed off on it.
Right.
It just kind of went away.
Okay.
And so
like,
I don't know if I'm still a legend to them or not. But, I could be, but I'm just saying that. Like,
did you even know her name?
No. But that's the thing that happens.
First clue.
I know, it's funny, but just think about that. And I'm sure you got a story similar to that in your childhood when you want to look like either the big deal or the winner or the person that's got the goods. I mean, this is something that's easy.
Yeah.
That's something that, that Joseph Smith, can be accused of doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this guy, Hoffman, Lori Vallow, when she's in her religious circles and I spoke to Jesus, I have these, and you can convince, you can come up with a story, and then you can convince, whether you're dreaming up, fantasize about it, and then you can convince yourself that it's true. Like, how do you pass a lie detector test? Like what technique do you use?
He practiced.
Partial.
Yeah. He practiced. I don't know what he had. Some kind of machine that he used, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Why are you looking at me? I'm looking at you. You're looking at me. I'm looking at her. She's looking at you. It's like the Three Stooges.
I know, I'm trying to think about the machine. I can't remember what it's called. But
he actually.
Something about his fingers.
Well,
yeah.
They put these
Well, actually, believe it or not, since we're talking about religion and all, Scientology also uses a thing like a lie detector test. It sends a little low voltage through you, and then when you lie, you get a different reading. The voltage goes up or down, and that's what that makes that little.
Or
and that's part of a lie detector
or if they're
test.
stressed, then they continue to ask you questions about it. If they hit something in Scientology that makes your body stressed, they can see that, so then they continue to ask you about
Press
it
in
to
on
get
it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just can imagine, in that when I was watching the Hoffman thing, I could imagine that kid doing that, and then getting this gratification, and then he obviously was like a sociopath, right? And that's where then it becomes real even to him. And it does, right?
Yeah.
In a way.
He did say that when he was 14, he became an atheist.
Right.
So he even hid that from his family. He acted like he was a good Mormon. I mean, he got married in the Mormon church. He brought his kids up Mormon, but yet he was an atheist the whole time.
Right.
And his wife didn't even know it.
Right, and the neighbors, when it came out that he was a suspect in the bombings, the neighbors were like, no way.
Well, he definitely had the look of like what you call a geek.
Yeah,
just like a nerd.
Totally.
Really, like he wasn't charismatic. He was looked like a little self-conscious man, right? That
Well, he
not
has
like
to know
a
how to
proud.
talk
He
to
wasn't like
people,
a
though.
proud bragger or anything like that.
I think that's why he was believable.
Yeah.
Because
Right, that's what I'm
he
saying.
knew what he was talking about, and he just.
Well,
Yeah,
I also found the his friend Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He was the guy with the funny voice.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
hardly hear
Shannon
him.
O'Doyle.
And there was, just on a side note, they had, little dramas about them together as young men. And then they had the real guy that they interviewed as an old man.
Right.
I was like, whoa. I mean, there was no comparison
Oh, yeah.
between the young man and this old guy. His voice was really
He
going.
had a very interesting. Yeah, his voice was hard. You had to really pay attention.
Yeah,
when
he
spoke.
might have cancer
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
in his
yeah.
throat.
But
But how about the guys? And they were talking about when they're out there with the Uzis and they got
Yeah.
the sports car, and they're like these geeky dudes out there shooting Uzis, and
Yeah.
they reenacted that whole
Yeah,
thing
yeah, they did.
where they were just like these hot shots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could, it's.
Well,
I guess you can get wrapped up in it, and then if you're like a sociopath or just super committed, you just don't know when to stop, and then that thing that you're doing, it becomes more important. You'll kill for it. It's
well, I like the
these
one
young
thing.
children, and he goes and bombing, killing people.
I
I mean,
know. He didn't care who died. He said.
Yeah,
Right.
he didn't even care if it was a kid.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
But I liked what Shannon had said when when Hoffman's car blew up and he was laying on the ground, and people were trying to help him, and the one Mormon guy came over and did some kind of a prayer, a blessing to him, and
Right.
and commanded him to live.
Yes.
And Shannon said he didn't realize, the poor guy didn't realize that he was talking to Satan.
Yeah, he got emotional when he said that.
Yeah, he didn't realize he was talking to Satan. And then I thought, that's a very interesting comparison.
Yeah, he had tricked everyone around, even his wife, like
Yeah,
with the whole letter and the
everything.
Yeah, he had one of the Salamander letters. He made it so she would find that in this book.
right? He had
that
the pages
had.
glued together.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's the one that found it.
Because he put it in there to.
Right.
Right.
Set her up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
it was really
strange.
interesting. And
Very interesting.
And
yeah.
I think that ending, and it is spoiler alert. Well, we blew it the whole time. But
watch the show
Watch
first.
it first.
I kind of think that that ending was a good twist to it, because I did not suspect him
Nope.
at
No.
all.
Me either. I totally
Right.
thought it was a Mormon church. Trying to hide.
Yeah, I thought
trying
that
something.
in the beginning.
I thought the Mormons were trying to get him, to silence him.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It just so happened. The twist of it is that he was in a way trying to,
Make it
the
look-
Mormons were a perfect victim for him because of their belief, their ties and their belief in history and their their connection to it and the way they like to document and buy all the documents, plus their own mythological beginning stories that are, you saw the comments from the last time we talked about Mormons, and they get thrown under the bus a lot. They get evangelical people will believe that the Mormons are a cult, Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. They'll throw them in that category of cult, and so you can, they're probably they're sensitive to that. Plus their own story of their origin story, where they were, they were driven out of every place they moved into until they got out to Salt Lake City, right?
Yeah, because they were in New York, you said, to begin with.
They started out in New York.
Yeah.
And then in Missouri is where Joseph Smith died, and then that was the other kind of thing that I saw too, is Joseph Smith, there was people in the town were kind of against, a lot of it was the polygamy, but also other things, and they made a newspaper, and they put out a publication saying, basically saying bad things about Joseph Smith, and he went and burnt the place down to destroy the thing. And that's why he was in jail, and then they went after him, and he got killed.
Okay.
But he was also kind of suppressing bad news about him. And so it's like, there's a lot of interesting connections here. And then depending on what you believe around religion, Mormons, all that stuff, that can affect how you see this thing, right?
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. So definitely a must see.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and it isn't that long. It's only 3 episodes, and they're probably about 40-45 minutes. They're not even an hour.
Oh, that was the
I
other
don't
thing
think.
I thought I saw a connection to. Is like, I'm sorry, I interrupted
No, that's
you.
okay.
The other thing, that the perfect pawn are the perfect foil for a person like this Hoffman. You know, that he's willing. He doesn't have any respect for the tradition, so he's willing to play with them, right, and make fake letters and stuff. Is, you know, what's going on now with the, I guess, right-wing evangelical Republicans and QAnon and the election fraud, and I mean, you can name this. I mean, I was just recently talking to someone that we both know that, you know, there's QAnon conspiracy theories where Hollywood elites and Hillary Clinton scare children and draw some to get their hormones or something, and then they inject themselves with it because it's some kind of powerful drug. I mean, that's a QAnon kind of conspiracy theory. Pizzagate, right? Like, the right-wing evangelicals are also, like the Mormons, perfect pawns for deep state conspiracy theories, whatever it is, fake the moon landing, flat Earth. You know, they're very susceptible to that because of, you know, I don't know if it's the nature of the nature of their belief or what they believe in, or that part of what you believe in has that whole like faith gap there where it doesn't need to be. You just got to believe it, right? And then when you just believe something, well, then that can't be proven. Like, this is a jar of buttons; it's not a treasure, right? We can say that.
But it could be a treasure to someone.
To a kid, that's going to be a treasure. That could be all the colors in there, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on where you come from belief, what you believe, and that's the guy like Hoffman can really exploit that, because he, you know, with lack of empathy, with lack of sympathy, he just does it for fun, for sport. That's what I got out of it too. When you go into that guy's mind,
he did it for money too.
Yeah, but he didn't really. He pissed all his money away. He didn't have money. He could have had money.
He did for a while.
It was almost like he did it for sport.
Yeah.
The way I looked at it.
Yeah.
Because
it's kind of like a gambler.
It's not like he built some kind of wealthy, you know, successful business or whatever. He didn't have any money. That's what his wife was saying. That he just frivolously let it go.
He was a bad money manager, but he still wanted to collect money.
One other thing
like a
too. That also, I've known people somewhat like him where the guy could drink, you know, 10 bottles of whiskey and then walk around like it didn't affect them.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah. I know.
I don't know if you ever ran into people like that they just do not get affected by alcohol or drugs like.
Or he acted like he was. They talked about him being out with these associates and drinking all of this alcohol and acting like he was perfectly fine walking around. They said walk back and forth. He did it. Walk around the table. He did it after drinking probably a whole bottle of whiskey at that point. But as soon as he got to his room, he got sick. So he was able to control himself enough to act like
I just think some people
that he was drunk. So yeah, at the point of him either not being affected by the alcohol and then getting sick because it made his stomach sick, or really being a good actor and had all his faculties until he got up to his room, we just don't know.
I suspect that, you know, part of his psychology, his
makeup,
psychological makeup.
Okay.
He can block that off. He doesn't feel.
That's a sociopath.
He doesn't feel, but the alcohol too. He just doesn't allow him to like get silly or whatever. Like most people are.
Right.
Like he just can't. He doesn't. He's able to not go there and just doesn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Because he was very monotone, and the way he's talking about killing people, you know, and just very matter of fact, right?
Yeah.
And so there's something, you know, disconnected in his
I'll say. I mean, it was really,
So,
Pathology, psychological pathology.
uh-huh.
yep.
That's my.
So we would
suspicion.
say that it is probably a good use of your time to take
I'd
a
say
look
it's
at this.
very good.
Yeah. And let us know your thoughts. Definitely comment, subscribe, click on the bell so you're notified every time we upload a video. And until next time, bye.